Church's Smokehouse Chicken is back, and the block already knows what's up. The new Smokehouse Rub hits every piece of that juicy half chicken with bold, smoky flavor that goes straight to the bone. Nobody else does it like Church's. Our recipe served up just for you. Get it in original or bring the heat with the spicy rub. Dial it up Texas style with a honey butter biscuit and a spicy jalapeno pepper on the side. The new dry rub has everybody talking. Lose yourself in the flavor of Smokehouse Chicken, starting at $5.99. Order online or in store, only at Church's. Price and participation may vary, tax extra, U.S. only.
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G network.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. September 11th, 2001 began like any other day. It was a crisp, clear morning in the Northeast, the kind where the sky seems endless and the air carried the promise of early fall. People boarded subways, drove into the city, grabbed their morning coffee, and made their way into offices. There was no forewarning that life as we knew it was about to fracture. Before that day, the world felt different. We lived with a certain innocence, one that allowed us to believe that horrific events of mass destruction could not happen here, not on American soil. But in a matter of hours, the unimaginable unfolded. The skyline of New York City was forever changed, and thousands of lives were lost, and millions more were upended. That morning became a line in the sand between before and after. And yet, in the middle of that darkness, extraordinary stories of courage emerged, stories that continue to remind us of resilience, sacrifice, and humanity. Among them is one of the most moving that I've ever heard, the story of Welles Crowther, known to so many as the man in the red bandana. Welles was a young man working in finance in the South Tower of the World Trade Center. But in the days before September 11th, something was stirring inside him. He'd begun to sense that his true calling lay elsewhere, that he would find greater fulfillment in a different vocation. Those around him noticed a quiet solemnity in him, almost as though he knew, somehow, that his time was limited. When the plane struck the towers and chaos erupted, Welles acted with calm and purpose. He guided people down stairwells, carried the injured, and returned again and again into danger, leading strangers to safety. Many of those who survived did so because of the man in the red bandana. In the end, Welles gave his life so that others could live. In today's episode, I revisit my interview with his mother, Alison. Through her voice, you'll hear not only the story of her son's heroism, but also the depth of a mother's intuition. She describes the signs she felt from him that very day and in the months and years after, moments that reminded her his spirit was still close, still guiding, still present. The story of Welles Crowther is not only about bravery in the face of unthinkable danger, it's about purpose, legacy, and the way one life lived with conviction and selflessness can alter the lives of so many others. On a day defined by loss, his story is one of the light. And as we remember September 11th, we honor not just the enormity of what was taken, but also the humanity of those who were lost, their laughter, their families, their morning routines. They were people whose Tuesday mornings ended suddenly, leaving their loved ones to carry forward both grief and memory. Remembering them is not simply about history. It's about ensuring their lives, their choices, and their love continue to shape us today. Here is my interview with Alison Crowther. But among those incredible stories of heroism, that is my absolute favorite, is that of Welles Crowther's. So his story has been told numerous times, including Man in Red Bandana on Amazon Prime, That's narrated by Gwyneth Paltrow. And The Man in the Red Bandana on ESPN, narrated by Ed Burns. So Welles was 24 and a rookie equities trader for Sandler O'Neil from Upper Nyack, New York. He died in the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. And he became known as the Man in the Red Bandana for the handkerchief that he wore as protective mask while assuming a rescuer's role in the South Tower before it collapsed. He's credited with helping at least 18 people escape the tower in several trips up and down stairs before perishing along a group of New York City firefighters. As a little boy, Welles followed in his father's lead as a member of the local Empire Hook and Ladder Company, number 1 in Upper Nyack. By age 7, he was helping clean the fire trucks, and by 16, he became a junior member and gained full firefighter status at 18. After attending Boston College, Welles went to work for Sandler O'Neil, which is an investment bank, and was working on the 104th floor of the South Tower on September 11th when United Airlines Flight 175 hit the building. After leaving his mother Alison a voicemail message telling her that he was okay, he was never heard from again. His mother Alison said she followed her mother's instinct after the attack, searching for information about her son and his final moments. She combed through news coverage even after her son's remains were recovered from Ground Zero 6 months after the attacks. 2 months after that recovery, on Memorial Day 2002, she read a lengthy New York Times article on the chaos inside the towers before they collapsed, which included eyewitnesses describing an unnamed rescuer, a cool-headed office worker who appeared in the sky lobby on the South Tower's 78th floor. Now, you remember the 78th floor was where the plane hit. A mysterious man appeared who managed to locate the only possible stairwell and began marshaling down groups of injured and dazed people, according to the article, which also gave a telling detail about the rescuer that floored Mrs. Crowther. He wore a red bandana over his face to keep out smoke and debris. "Oh my God, Welles," she gasped. "I found you." She summoned her husband, who nearly 20 years earlier had given 2 handkerchiefs to their son as he dressed for church one Sunday morning, a white pocket square and a red one to blow his nose. "One to show and one to blow," Mr. Welles told the boy, who after that was never without a red bandana. He wore it under his hockey and fire helmets as a teen and under his lacrosse helmet while playing for Boston College. He carried it in the pocket of his business suit every day to the World Trade Center. And apparently, as his parents were now reading, he pulled it out that morning before organizing a group rescue in the burning South Tower on floors not yet reached by firefighters. So according to survivor accounts in the Times article, which Miss Crowther began reading aloud to her stunned husband, her son had searched for a fire extinguisher. He used it to put out some blazes and assigned a woman, Ling Young, to carry it down the stairs while he carried an injured woman on his back. He led a first group to the 61st floor, then pulled his bandana over his mouth and told them he was going to guide them downstairs. So he later joined firefighters who had a tool to free trapped victims. His body was eventually recovered among those of firefighters at a command center in the South Tower's lobby, mere steps from escape. The Crowthers contacted survivors quoted in the Times article, who then reviewed family photographs of Welles and confirmed that he was their rescuer. Maintaining composure during chaotic rescues was drilled into Welles at the Rockland County Fire Training Center, where training included searching smoke-filled rooms and fiery structures and carrying out heavy dummies. His father said on 9/11 he put that training to its highest and best use, who added that his son told him a few weeks before the 2001 attack that he had decided to leave his finance job and become a New York City firefighter. His father said that he found an application for the firefighter job partially filled out in his son's Manhattan apartment after his death. His body was found, as I mentioned, in an area where the firefighters' remains were recovered. He was with members of the fire department, including the assistant chief, Donald Burns, one of the most respected members of the entire department. In 2006, the New York City Fire Department named Welles Crowther an honorary firefighter. He was also mentioned by President Barack Obama at a 2014 dedication ceremony for the National September 11th Memorial and Museum in Lower Manhattan. One of his coworkers at Sandler O'Neil once teased him about the red bandana on his desk. And Welles answered, "This bandana's going to change the world." It was just a casual remark, his friend said. But in many ways it has. The story of that bandana has gone around the world and touched a lot of people. Alison, this is such an honor. Thank you so much for your time. I want you to first tell me a little bit about Welles as a kid.
Well, I'd be delighted to, Kate. Thank you. But first, I want to thank you for thinking of our son and remembering our son and contacting me. I'm always very pleased to speak about Welles. As a boy, Welles, from the time he was a very young boy, he was like this little guardian angel. He had his sister Honor was about 2 years younger, a little over 2 years younger than him, and he took such a caring, protective approach to his baby sister, and that lasted all their lives. I mean, even when they were Boston College together, Welles was running interference. Honor wasn't too happy about it, but running interference with some of the young men she was, interested in. Welles would say, "Now that's my sister, be good to her." And so that's just how he was. His friends would say, both at growing up and at Boston College, his friends would say they always knew Welles had their back whenever there was any kind of situation. He, as a young boy, had a fabulous imagination. G.I. Joe was a big thing that they used to play all the time, dress up and play. And he was full of adventure. He'd be always leaping off the highest rocks and places he could find. I came home one day. I don't think anybody knows this story. It just occurred to me. I came home one day. We have a massively huge cedar, like a sequoia-type high cedar tree out in our backyard. And I come home and I get out of the car and I hear Wells's voice going, "Hi, Mom." And I'm looking all over for Welles, like, "Welles, where are you?" "Hi, Mom, I'm up here." And he was way up in that tree. I went, "Oh my gosh, Welles, get down immediately." Well, he was just that kind of fearless kid. He was fearless from the time. I never, ever, ever saw him ever display any kind of fear about things. He just was very solid and and a couple of times, for example, I was in a car accident and he was working in the city, and the next thing, I'm in a hospital in northern Westchester, and the next thing I know, he's standing next to me. And I said, "Welles, how did you even find out I was here?" He said, "Don't worry about it, Mom." But he would take charge. He would always be a take charge fellow in any kind of situation. So that was part of his nature. He trained as a volunteer firefighter with Empire Hook and Ladder Company. When he was 16, my husband was a member of the company. He just loved being part of that scene. And so when he was 16, he joined as a junior member. And when he was 18, he became a fully fledged volunteer firefighter. Wonderful sense of humor. Very dutiful, very goal-oriented. He was very goal-oriented. He worked very hard at his studies. He was a high honor roll student all through high school, but he had to work hard for that. He studied hard and he was very conscientious.
So he went on to play lacrosse at BC.
That's right. Yes, he did. He loved Boston College. He loved it every minute there. His friends, being on the team. He was small for his age growing up. He did get bigger in college. He did grow to be a bigger man in college, but he was still on the smaller side for varsity lacrosse players in a Division I level. But it didn't faze him. He got out there and he worked hard and just loved being part of the team. And his teammates are friends and supportive to this day.
Take me back to September 11th. You received a call on your voicemail. Walk me through that morning.
Okay. Well, I had premonitions I've gotten premonitions since I was about 16 years of age about certain things, mostly disasters, but I can never pinpoint what. So the night before, I started feeling like I was flying apart in 1,000 pieces. I was in the kitchen yelling at the top of my lungs, there's something so wrong. I don't know what it is, but there's something so bad. And I never used the F word, but I was throwing it around that day. F me, F this, I don't know what it is, but there's something so wrong. So I went downstairs and started to try to work on my computer. And I put my hands toward the keyboard, and before I could even touch the computer, the screen fried. It just sizzled and fried. So, okay, that's it. I'm going to bed. I didn't sleep all night. I got up the next morning early to go work out. I thought, okay, I'm going to go work out at this fitness club. At the time, I was vice president of sales for a company over in Westchester on the other side of the river. And so I was a member of a fitness club there. So I'm on the Tappan Zee Bridge with like white knuckle driving. And suddenly into my head come these words, I know what this means. I'm going to die today. And the second I said that or heard those words, I felt like my chest opened up and a brilliant light shot out and a mist shot out. And I was this little cloudy place right there, right above my forehead. But I was also instantly a complete, serene, and utter peace. Well, I'm going to die today. I wonder how it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. Oh, well, it's better than what I've been going through. And I thought, I was planning business meetings. Why is death better than that? It just made no sense. And then I'm like struggling to figure out where that voice came from. It was like outside of me, but inside of me at the same time. It was just very bizarre experience. So, but I was a complete serene and utter peace. So I kept driving. I took a shortcut to get on the Sawmill Parkway behind Terrytown, which is the town on the eastern bank of the Tappan Zee Bridge, to go up north toward my work. And as I drove through reservoirs that are typically very peaceful bodies of water, but that morning there were thousands of up-spiraling mists on either side of me, all the same height, thousands. I drove through that and I thought, well, I know this much. Today is a very evil day. And I'm going to die anyway. Oh, well, it's going to happen. So I had no information whatsoever about what was happening or coming other than it was a very evil day and I was going to die. So I worked out, I left, walked past the television monitors probably before anything happened. But it was about 8:45 or so. And then got to my office where there was no television. My boss, who was president of the company, said her phone rang. Her husband's a stockbroker and in New York. And her phone rang and she said, Alison, it's your husband's secretary. And I said, oh, well, well, that's odd. Why should she be calling me? I knew my husband was supposed to go to a golf outing. Maybe something happened to him. So I went over to my office to pick up the phone. And the secretary said, Alison, Welles just called. He wanted you to know he's okay. I said, Welles, why wouldn't he be okay? And she said, do you know what's happened? I said, no, what? And she said, a plane's hit the World Trade Center. So I went, oh my God, okay. First thoughts, probably like everybody. Small plane must have gotten out of control, hit the World Trade Center. Too bad for them. To them, we hear the second tower's hit. Oh, this is an attack. We hear the Pentagon is hit. Well, this is war, but who's the enemy? That was the progression of that thinking that morning. Meanwhile, my people at my office, the people working, in the front shop, were had found a radio and tuned in. And just as I went up to find out what was going on, they all stopped and looked at me like white as sheets. Well, the first tower had collapsed, they told me. A tower's come down. We didn't know which one at the time, but a tower's come down. But at that moment, I knew Welles was gone. And so I called my husband. I said, Jeff, Welles is gone. I was like hyperventilating, crying, and he said, no, don't say that. Welles had plenty of skills. He could have gotten out of there. I said, I don't see how. I don't see how he's gone. So that was the morning. And then my coworkers drove me home because I was, I guess, in no state to drive, no condition to drive. And I just sat in front of the TV starting to look for signs of Welles, starting to look for some evidence of Welles surviving, maybe with the people that were leaving or whatever. And I remember looking at that scene thinking, this is going to be like one colossal jigsaw puzzle, putting a gazillion pieces back together in order to understand what went on inside those buildings that day. So I never stopped looking. I kept looking. I kept reading everything I could. I kept watching all the specials, something drove me to keep looking.
That was about 6 months later. You got a call that they had recovered his body?
Yes. Actually, I was with my younger daughter. She was auditioning for the the classical dance conservatory at SUNY Purchase. She was training as a classical ballerina at a very high level. And I was waiting for her to come down for lunch, and the phone rang, and it was my housekeeper calling, saying, "Alison, the police are at the door." I said, "They are?" What? She said, "Yeah." And I thought it was my dogs had gotten loose, and were causing trouble around the neighborhood. So I got on with the police officer, and he said, "Mrs. Crowther," I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you driving?" I said, "No." "Why?" I said, "Do I need to sit down or something?" I mean, I had no idea how bad the dogs had been. And so, he said, "Your son's been recovered."
Wow.
I'm sorry. "Your son's been recovered from ground zero." And I said, "Oh my God." I said, and that was the 19th of March. Wells's big lucky number was the number 19.
Oh, no way.
Think about the app you've been wanting to build, sell something you've created, run your community, manage your business, or launch your next idea. Now imagine it's live before today's over. Meet Base 44, the fastest way to turn any idea into a fully functional app. No code, no waiting. Just describe what you want and watch it come together. Backend, design, and all in minutes. A real product ready to share. From idea to live app fast. Start building today at base44.com.
On Boxing Day 2018, 20-year-old Joy Morgan was last seen at her church, Israel United in Christ, or IUIC.
I just went on my Snapchat and I just see her face plastered everywhere.
This is The Missing Sister, the true story of a woman betrayed by those she trusted most.
IUIC is my family and the best family that I've ever had.
But IUIC isn't like most churches.
This is a devilish cult.
You know when you get that feeling where I don't want to be here. I want to get out. It's like that feeling of, I want to go home now.
I'm Charlie Brinkhurst-Cuff, and after years of investigating Joy's case, I need to know, what really happened to Joy? Binge all episodes of The Missing Sister exclusively and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus. Start your free trial of Wondery Plus on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or in the Wondery app.
He was recovered on the 19th, but they didn't make the call till Friday the 21st. I'll never forget that. And it was my daughter, Paige, saying, "When did they find him?" And I said, "Well, they found him on Tuesday." And my daughter, Paige, said, "That's 19th. That's the 19th of March, Mom." Everything about Welles circles around the number 19. It's just amazing. Anyway, I know it's how he sends signs to us now anyhow. But so my first question to the police officer was, how was he identified? Because people were finding bone fragments of their loved ones. It was just
awful. Such
a horror scene. We'd given DNA samples. We'd given samples of hairbrushes, Wells's hair. So he said by fingerprints. And I went, "Oh my God, fingerprints." I mean, that was in this weird world, good news. I said, "That means you must have found him intact." And he said, "Yes, pretty much." And that was all I knew. Actually, when we met with the medical examiners, we were informed. They said, "Well, he was found, with the men of the instant command center of the FDNY. And I remember thinking, yes, Welles, you went to the top, right? You're a firefighter. What I said early on was he took his equities trader hat off and he put on his firefighter's hat the minute that first tower was hit. So they told us, they said, well, we think Welles must have been acting as a civilian usher. Oh, what does that mean? Well, he was probably holding open doors so people could escape, because down at the bottom with all this craziness, when you got down to the ground level, it was like every day normal, air conditioning,
right?
Like every day. So you had to hold open the glass doors in order to let people just freely run out. And I remember thinking, Welles wasn't doing that. Wasn't doing that. He was doing something else, because Welles wouldn't be satisfied with holding open doors. Anybody could do that.
Yeah.
So I said they said they died instantly. The towers came down in about 8.5 seconds. They probably didn't even know what hit them. So with that news, I went and sat I just had to sit down and collect myself. I didn't have to use the bathroom, but I went to the bathroom just to sit down and kind of just have a quiet, small space and sort of try to think about what it was like for Welles. Mm-hmm. I was trying to put my head there with him. And so I'm sitting on the John, the seat was closed. So I was sitting on like a chair, and I'm counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The minute I got to 8 Mississippi, boom, the metal cover of the toilet paper holder flew open and hit me in the arm.
What?
Swear to God, hit me in the arm. And I went like that. And I jumped, but I didn't feel any pain. And I said, thank you, Welles, for showing me what it was like.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? What else could it be?
Right.
So I don't know. It was another almost 2 months after that we had his ashes immured, and I felt some degree of peace that we'd been able to bring him home, and we had his ashes immured at his church, at our church, but in the Memorial Garden that's very beautiful. And so I felt, like I'd done a good job bringing him home, at least. We were able to get him home. But it wasn't this business of closure. There really is no such thing. There's some levels of peace you can reach, but closure is really never. So I kept looking. I kept looking for evidence of what happened. And we didn't really hear much of anything more until it was Memorial Weekend, and the New York Times had come out with this big article, Fighting to Live as the Towers Died. It was the first attempt to put back the jigsaw puzzle, basically. There were 4 writers involved. They were taking different parts of the towers and interviews and phone records and where people were and some personal interviews. And my husband couldn't see, couldn't read, couldn't deal with any of that. So he took the paper and he said, here, you may want to read this. So I took it. I went into our bedroom and sat down, and I'm reading through the article, and I come to this section that says 903 or 902 or 903 in the South Tower Sky Lobby. Well, I knew Welles had been in his office up close to the time that the planes hit, because his roommates had called him. One of his roommates had called him, spoken to him pretty much around then. And yet he had been able to get from the 104th floor all the way down to the ground level to be with the firefighters. And so I knew he had to go through the Sky Lobby. The Sky Lobby is on the 78th floor. It's where you take express elevators up from the ground floor to the 78th, and then you get on local elevators for the next 30 floors up to 104th. So I knew that he had to be in the vicinity of the South Tower Sky Lobby when the planes hit. And I knew he had to be out of his office and at least down that far, because they recovered him down at the ground level. So I started reading, and that's where I saw the references to the Red Bandana, with these 2 women, Ling Young and Judy Ween, mentioning about this mysterious man wearing a red handkerchief. They call it a red bandana. And I was like, Welles, I found you. Oh my God, there you are. I was like, so I went running into my husband and I said, Jeff, I found Welles. Here he is. There he is. He's in this, So, all those months later, and then I was able to reach out. I called the writers, of course, who were no help. They said, they already had their story. They really didn't care. One followed up and called. And so right away, what I did, I called the next day. I called Aon, which was where Judy Ween had worked. And they said, we're sorry. I couldn't find any information on Ling Young, where to reach her. So, but I had that reference to Aon. So I called Aon and they said, we're sorry. She hasn't come back into the office ever since this happened. And we can't give out her phone number. I said, well, I completely understand that. I said, but I think it might have been my son that saved her. So here's my phone number. Can you reach out to her, please, and tell her? And by the end of the day, Judy Ween called me back and we spoke. And then I was able to, I guess they had set up a group, like communication via email with the people that had been survivors of the South Tower. So she communicated with Ling Young. I sent a picture of Welles to Judy, I think. Or no, I sent a picture of Welles to Judy and Ling. And Ling, it was Ling's son, Richard, who contacted me because Ling, at that point, she was burned over 40% of her body. She was just in terrible shape, but strong lady. And they were so happy to think that maybe they found the man. Maybe they knew who this was now. So Richard called and I sent photos and Richard said, well, this photo is like Welles was standing next to another firefighter who ultimately died of 9/11 related issues taken by my husband when they were on the John D. McCain, which was the fireboat, the FDNY fireboat that fought all the fires at Ground Zero. And when my husband took the picture, he said, Dad, just be sure you get the towers in the background. And so we have that photo from the boat with the towers in the background with these two firefighters, both have succumbed to their, the event.
Aftermath.
But what I did was, because the pictures I sent were of Welles, what was in the paper was a high school photo of Welles. Then I sent Welles's college picture where he's all dressed up in a suit and tie. And Richard Young, Ling's son, had said, well, he said it was pretty, crazy there. He certainly wasn't dressed in a suit. Can you send him more casual pictures? So I sent that picture that my husband had taken on the boat, but I cropped out the towers so they didn't know. I didn't want to upset them and I didn't want to, influence them in any way. But I sent that picture of Welles. And then Richard called back and he said, my mother thinks this may be the man, but I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, please describe this red handkerchief that he was wearing. And I said, well, if it was solid red, first of all, if he's an older gentleman, it wasn't Welles. If it was a solid red handkerchief, that wasn't Welles either. It would have been a bandana with a bandana print that he was wearing. And thirdly, and then he said, well, he didn't have a shirt on. Welles, by the way, was known for stripping off his clothes. And especially in a situation like this, where it was so intense. He was just wearing an undershirt. Can you describe that, please? I said, sure. It would not have been one of those, whatever you call, those tank top underwear shirts. It would have been a short sleeve crew neck Brooks Brothers undershirt. And he said, yeah, that's it. He said, okay, that's the man. So that was the confirmation. Judy Ween confirmed. And then they talked before they called me. They both talked to try to piece together the timing of Welles helping them because they didn't come down together. So it turns out Welles brought Ling down first to Clear Air, which was about the 61st floor. And Ling was Welles had said, Ling, can you carry a fire extinguisher? And she said, yes, because that's when he carried this woman, an African-American lady, over his shoulder down all those flights from the 78th floor to the 61st floor. And then he turned around, he turned around to go back up. And Ling said, do I need to keep this fire extinguisher, and Wells said, no, you don't have to. It looks like it's good from here on. So she kept on going down to the 40th floor where there were firefighters to escort her out. The African-American woman wouldn't get up. Lynn said, you've got to get up and come with me now. And the woman said, I can't, I'm too tired. So she never survived. Wells went back up, and that's when he found Judy Ween's group and got them off. And then there were other people that heard him saying, over here, I found the stairs, come over here. This is the way you have to go. So that's the story that got pieced together. He made multiple trips between the 78th floor and the 61st floor, went back up again, got more people off, came down, did not leave the building once he got down. And we were told later by firefighters, by FDNY firefighters, that group he was with, the instant commander, and Donald Burns was the instant commander, and his men, they had a Jaws of Life tool, a Hearst tool, and they were going to go back up again in order to cut people out of, I don't know, elevators or debris or whatever they found. And that's when the towers came down. So they were actually blown as a group.
Yeah.
Because when the towers came down, it was like a pancake, and it created a big bellows effect, and they were blown as a group out and up against the wall of 4 World Trade. And that's where they dropped. And that's where they were found when they moved the very first ramp down into the pit. And did their final excavation, and that's when they were found.
And the call that he made to his friend, did he also speak to him after the first plane had hit the North Tower?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't. No, it was after the plane hit the first tower. That's when he called my husband's office, and he called me, because it was the other tower that was hit, and he was going down with another friend, coworker who also was a volunteer firefighter to go help out at the North Tower scene.
And tell me about the significance of the bandana, the story behind why he always carried that.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Wells was, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years old, and we were getting dressed for church. He had a little suit on, and he said, Daddy, can I have a white handkerchief like you have for my breast pocket? And my husband said, sure, Wells. So he goes in to his drawer and pulls out a white handkerchief and white linen handkerchief. And he also decided to just grab a bandana. I mean, he happened to grab a red one. And so he goes back to Wells, and he folds up the handkerchief very neatly and puts it in his pocket, and said, now, Wells, this handkerchief, that's for show. Do not touch that. Do not. Don't move it. That stays there. That's just for show. Here's a bandana. That's for blowing your nose, for messy jobs. And keep that in your back pocket. And that's what you'll always use for messy jobs. So from that time on, basically, Wells always walked around with a red bandana in his back pocket. And his friends knew about this. At college, he knew about this. He had a bandana tied around his head. It just was part of him. And I think he felt it was a real connection to his father. And it probably gave him comfort that day, too. I suspect it probably did. And I know Wells just was single-mindedly, not thinking about his own safety or anything like that. His training kicked in, and his sole mission that day was to save as many lives as he could.
Now, he had said to Jeff in the months before that he was thinking about leaving his job from Sandler and wanted to be a firefighter, correct?
Yes, that's right. They didn't share that information with me, however. Yes, that's right. So I really knew nothing about that. But the last weekend home with us was Labor Day weekend of 2001. And Wells, who typically would be running off to see where his buddies were, going to play basketball, hanging out with his friends, that weekend, he wanted to be with us. He spent a long, wonderful time at the firefighter, just like at the fireman's picnic, which was a tradition over Labor Day weekend. He went with us up to watch his little sister, Paige, perform in a ballet performance, end of program ballet performance. He spent a lot of time going through his photo albums that he'd put together over the year before, with pictures from his youth, from pictures from traveling to Europe. He'd gone to Spain one summer in college to study the Bourse, to work on that. It was a Syracuse University program. He just seemed somehow really different to me, melancholy almost. And I thought maybe he was sort of mooning over a former girlfriend. And I said, Wells, are you like sad about you not having this girlfriend anymore? He says, no, Mom, it's not that at all. He said, I don't know. It's not that. So right before I took him back on Monday, of Labor Day Monday, took him back over to Tarrytown to catch the train into the city. He took me over to the piano where I had his college photo. And he said, Mom, what do you think? It was the year of gel in your hair. So he had all this gel in his hair. But he said, Mom, I don't know. I think that gel was a mistake. I said, don't worry. Don't worry, Wells. No, don't worry. You look great. It's just fine. And so we turned to go, and suddenly he stopped, and I turned around to look at him. And he said, Mom, I don't know what it is, but I do know this much. I know I'm meant to be part of something really, really big. Yep. And so I know. And so I thought, first of all, my first response, I didn't say this, of course, but my first response was, wow, that's quite an ego you've got there, kid. I mean, it's great that you think that way. That's very positive thinking. And I hope it happens, but wow. And so, and then driving across, we were on the bridge. And I said, Wells, whatever it is you want to do, if you want to go to graduate school, we'll support you. Whatever you want to do, if you're not, and so if you want to make a change, that's the best I could come up with. I had no idea he was thinking about joining the FDNY. And my husband had advised, he said, you'll take a big potential income reduction doing that. So why don't you work for a long time as as an equities trader, and then you can retire when you've built up a nice nest egg and go into the FDNY. There's still time. Anyway, I was not privy to any of that discussion. So off he went, my beautiful son, into the city. We had dinner with him and a friend the following Sunday, which was the 9th. And walking across to go to the restaurant, Wells pulled out of his back pocket his comb and wallet with the bandana wrapped around it. I guess it was just a comb with a bandana wrapped around it. And I looked at him, I said, Wells, are you still carrying that thing? I said, you're just like your father. Here you are working on Wall Street and you're still walking around with that red bandana. And he didn't say anything. He just smiled. He just smiled. He was very pleased because his father always carried a bandana too. I mean, it's just what they did.
How hard is it to kill a planet? Maybe all it takes is a little drilling, some mining, and a whole lot of carbon pumped into the atmosphere. When you see what's left, it starts to look like a crime scene.
Are we really safe? Is our water safe? You destroyed our town.
And crimes like that, they don't just happen.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. This was 100% preventable.
They're the result of choices by people. Ruthless oil tycoons, corrupt politicians, even organized crime. These are the stories we need to be telling about our changing planet. Stories of scams, murders, and cover-ups that are about us and the things we're doing to either protect the Earth or destroy it. Follow Lawless Planet on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to new episodes of Lawless Planet early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
It's your man, Nick Cannon, and I'm here to bring you my new podcast, Nick Cannon at Night. I've heard y'all been needing some advice in the love department. So who better to help than yours truly? Nah, I'm serious. Every week, I'm bringing out some of my celebrity friends and the best experts in the business to answer your most intimate relationship questions. Having problems with your man? We got you. Catching feelings for your sneaky link? Let's make sure it's the real deal first. Ready to bring toys into the bedroom? Let's talk about it. Consider this a non-judgment zone to ask your questions when it comes to sex and modern dating in relationships, friendships, situationships, and everything in between. It's gonna be sexy, freaky, messy, and You know what? You'll just have to watch the show. So don't be shy. Join the conversation and head over to YouTube to watch Nick Cannon at Night, or subscribe on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to watch episodes early and ad-free? Join Wondery Plus right now.
Do you think that he had premonitions like you did?
Yeah, I think so. I do think so. I don't think I think maybe only about this particular incident. I never seen evidence, or he never discussed anything like that with me at other times. But for sure, this was a premonition. I just sit with the thinking that these premonitions I had were basically a gift to help me
prepare you.
Yeah. And to understand that there was much more to come. And that I knew right away that I couldn't be defeated by Wells's loss, and I couldn't let my daughters' lives be derailed. They all changed they both changed what they were doing, but they landed on their feet beautifully. And so I see now the power of Wells's story, and thank goodness for people like Drew Gallagher, who was Wells's friend at Boston College, who was a producer at ESPN, whose idea it was to do this documentary, and Tom Rinaldi to write this book. Then Tom went on to write a book called The Red Bandana,
which we love. We love that book. It's one of our favorite books, and it's something that should be in every elementary and middle school library. It's such a great book, and I'm sitting here looking at you, and Welles is in the background in this framed photo from his lacrosse.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful photo. You must be overwhelmed by the reaction, even really across the world, of his story. What do you think he would make of it? And I know your husband has since passed. You must have such enormous gratitude for the people that have connected to your family and to his story. What do you want them to know about his legacy and what it means to your family?
Well, yes, I'm deeply, deeply grateful for all the people that have shared his story. Also for Matthew Weiss, who did a wonderful documentary about Welles. It was a 90-minute documentary. All of this information going out, the Fetzer Institute, which is based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and picked up on our Red Bandana story, Wells's story, through another friend of Wells's who was an attorney out in Chicago, and he was working as an advisor for the Fetzer Institute. So they're the people that funded our work developing the Red Bandana Project, and which is a curriculum for elementary, middle, and high school students, sports teams, and camps and youth programs. And it was developed by wonderful educators in New Jersey and here in Rockland. The lessons are leadership, caring for others, team, the power of one, bridging divides, forgiveness, and carpe diem. And so these lessons have been were beautiful back then when we developed this in like 2014, 15, 16. But also now in this day and age, these lessons are very transferable to what's going on now in terms of the importance of working together, of caring for others, of creating communication and understanding between different groups, forgiveness, and taking your moment. I mean, we didn't choose to be here in this pandemic, but here we are. So how best to respond to that? And all these lessons really apply. So the Fetzer Institute also was funded a special event over in Assisi, Italy, a number of years ago, a joint effort by the Salam Institute for Peace and Justice and the Royal Institute for Interfaith Studies, which is a program that's one of Prince El Hassan bin Talal's projects. He's the brother of the late King Hussein of Jordan. was educated at Harvard, was a pal of Al Gore's. So, I mean, a very modern thinking gentleman. And so I was invited over there to share Wells's story with leaders from 5 Arab countries, business leaders, academic, religious leaders. It just was astonishing. And everyone, even there, they embraced Wells's story. So one of the things I do is I think it's the most important thing I can do with Wells's story is I travel around to schools, and also I've done some corporate speaking as well, but I travel around to schools and speak to students, elementary, all the way middle schools, some high schools. The middle schools seem to be, most active in inviting me to come speak, but I'll speak anywhere. And some of the schools are incorporating the lessons. But when I talk to these young students, I see how Welles inspires them. Suddenly they're sitting up straight in their chairs. Their eyes are like alive. And this is a young man who is so much like them, but a real person that they can relate to. And I just think the power of that and what he did just shows young people, they can really just make a difference, a big difference in this world in many different ways. So that's what I want people to take away from this, that yes, there's evil out there in the world and there are people that do bad things, but they're also much greater is the power of good. Yeah. And we should all strive and work toward how to make this world a better place.
I agree. And then tell me about the race that's coming up.
Well, Boston College, we love Boston College. Every year, every year, Boston College, this is going to be the 16th year, Boston College sponsors a Red Bandana run at Boston College on campus. It's the single largest fundraiser for our Welles Crowther Charitable Trust. I'll tell you about the work we do with the trust in a minute. It's the single largest fundraiser. And we've had almost 2,000 runners on several occasions. So it's a big, big event. This year, however, it's gone virtual because of COVID. And we cannot have the run on campus. So the good news about that is people can sign up anywhere and do the race anywhere in their backyard or, get it together with a couple of friends. We don't want big mobs of people for sure, but they can sign up. It's $25 for a student and $30 for an adult to sign up for the run. And it's going to be held between October 17th and October 30th. So you can even actually sign up on October 29th, 30th if you wanted to, but we're encouraging people to sign up ahead. And anybody who signs up will get a number and they'll get a Red Bandana gator.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so we thought that was a great thing. That was BC's idea. They're always right on target with everything they want to do. So,
and the significance of 19 too is that was his number.
That's right. That's in lacrosse and all the sports. He wanted that number 19. So it was his lucky number.
And that was the day that his body was recovered, was the 19th.
That's right, the 19th of March, 2002. And also that was the number of terrorists that were directly involved with the attacks. So, yeah, that number we see, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to him. And anyway, so if people want to participate and help us out or just make donations, which we certainly appreciate too, you can go to www.bc for Boston College, bc.edu/Red Bandana Run. And the Red Bandana, we always spell bandana, BANDANNA. It sets it apart. It's how they spelled it in the original New York Times article. It sets it apart from most other bandana things going on. So bc.edu/Red Bandana Run. All the information is there. Some great photos. We're encouraging people to do social media posting of their run if they want. They can form teams. It's a very fun, exciting thing. With our charitable trust, excuse me, with our charitable trust, the Welles Crowther Charitable Trust, our mission is to help young people to become exemplary adults through education, health, recreation, and character development. So we have probably 7 or 8 scholarships we give out every year. And we also support other organizations, fine organizations that have a similar mission. If anyone wants more information on the work we do, you can visit www.crowther, CROWTHER, trust.org or redbandanaproject.org. The redbandanaproject.org is our educational side, and crowthertrust.org is more about the overall work of the trust, videos, important things to see, including, if no one has seen it, the dedication ceremony of the 9/11 Memorial Museum, where President Obama spoke about Welles. He chose Wells's Red Bandana to speak about at the dedication, and he spent a very lengthy amount of time talking about Welles, which we'll forever treasure that.
Absolutely. I am so grateful for your time. Like I said, our children have been so moved by his story, and just know that he lives in all of us, in my family. And I'm hoping that even more people get excited about his story and carry on his legacy. And you were a very lucky mom to have had him. And Thank you for sharing him with all of us. You must be incredibly, incredibly proud.
I am incredibly proud. And, we really are so grateful to all the people that support our work. So come join us for the run. We'd love to have any and all of you who are listening to sign up and come join us for the run. It's going to be great. And I really thank you, Kate, for reaching out and remembering Welles. And it's a very hard thing to lose such a wonderful person out of your life in such a way. But we have 2 beautiful daughters who are just as wonderful, and their families are growing. And so we kind of focus on them. What I do when I go to speak at schools or speak to you, this is the time I spend with Welles. And I just really hope that people in this country will work to understand each other. There's so much strife going on now, to just take a deep breath and just love one another, and just think of other people and put yourself in other people's shoes, and just, not be swayed by the rhetoric and the craziness that's going on both sides, but just to hunker down and center yourselves and look to how you can best make this world a better, kinder, more loving place within your reach.
Indeed.
That's my hope.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Kate. Good luck with everything in your beautiful family.
Thank you.
Good luck to your son with 4 dogs.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Oh, that's great.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guest, Alison, and remind everyone the importance of reaching out to especially firefighters and police officers today and extending a piece of gratitude to them for the work that they do. And hug your friends, hug your families close today more than ever. You can get more on my show by going to katecasey.com. Make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review. Please jump in the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. You can get my What to Watch list at katecasey.substack.com. And I've got bonus episodes, and you can find them on Apple Podcast or Patreon at patreon.com/Kate Casey. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KatecaseyCA, TikTok it's Kate Casey, and Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky at Kate Casey.
Iman is always on call to her kids and her patients. One day, she got the best ping ever. It was the Expedia app. Flight prices to Cozumel had just dropped, so it was a great time to book. On the beach, Iman finally felt on call to herself. Almost. You were made to use your Do Not Disturb mode. We were made to track flight prices to out of office. Expedia, made to travel. Available as a member benefit.